Hey everyone, I'm going to be going solo today because Tom is under the weather. He unfortunately caught COVID from our youngest daughter, and his voice is really rough and he's not feeling great. So he'll be resting and I will take over the call today. But that's okay because this topic is something that I have personally had to deal with. And I actually put this on the coaching calendar today. So we're going to cover how does having a duplicate podcast show name affect your success and audience reach? And we're going to talk about it from two perspectives. It's like, what happens if you want to have a duplicate name from what somebody else has in there, or it's kind of an overlapping name? And we're also going to talk about it from the point of perspective of what happens when somebody comes in with a name that's just like yours. And I know that can be really scary and frustrating. And it happened to one of our listeners and one of our binge factor guests. And we've talked about this personally. So this is from real life experience. So we're going to do that. So as always, on our coaching calls for Podetize's live streams that we do here and for all the clients in Podetize, we are doing multiple things here. And I want to point that out. One, we're providing coaching tips to our existing client base who are fantastic and usually on Zoom. So they get to ask questions if you're watching the live stream while you can comment, and we'll try to get back to you. The reality is that if you're not in a Zoom here, we're not helping you directly, and that's okay. You can passively consume this. But in order to actively ask your questions and do everything, you need to be a Podetize client, which involves just hosting with us. So it's super simple and easy to become a Podetize client. Go check out podetize.com. The other thing is we're demonstrating to you, all of you, how to use your live streams, your coaching calls as a podcast episode as well. So how to repurpose that. So we do this weird little thing here where I'm going to introduce our podcast episode, and it's going to look like we're just jumping into that. I'm not going to take questions and I'm not going to answer it during that short time period that we're covering just the topic. And then I will come back to them after I end the podcast episode. So we are recording our Feed Your Brand podcast. So if you've missed any of these coaching calls and you want to get them in one place, you can go to our YouTube live stream area where you have all the lives, if you want to call it that. And you can also go to the podcast itself, Feed Your Brand. So I'm going to get started so we can dive right into this topic and get to our Q&A at the end. Hey everyone, Tracy Hazzard here, going solo today on Feed Your Brand, and I am going to talk about how does having a duplicate podcast show name affect your success and your audience reach. Here's the thing. You can't usually have a duplicate name anywhere, but Apple, when they set up podcasts in their system in the very, very beginning, they allowed duplicates. Now, there's slight differences to it because they assign it a different number in their system. So even if you have a duplicate name, but they allowed it, they weren't really screening and checking. And so it happens. So you can have a very similar name. Typically, they now will push back on you and make you add the word podcast to it or show to it. So it's not a complete duplicate. There's usually a little bit of an addition to the name, but it happens all the time. It is also sometimes a digital marketing strategy. So usually it isn't someone who is serious about their podcast. It was their company name before. It's usually someone who's saying, I'm going to troll on someone else's good name and success and make sure that we show up in their search. So when someone's searching for a famous show, then they will also have your show up. And that's their goal. They are actually trying to trade on your hard work for building your show name. So that happens. Now, Tom and I did this early on. It was a strategy. When we first named when we had our very first show, WTFFF, which stands for Fused Filament Fabrication, which is the geeky term for 3D printing, WTF with Mark Marone was pretty famous at that time period as a podcast. It had gotten a lot of general public exposure because he had just had President Obama on his show at that time. And what happened was that people were searching WTF through the search directory. So we did it more for fun because we knew his show was always going to show up when you type in WTF. We weren't really stealing his authority because we weren't coming in on top of him and in front of him. We were going to come in after because you would have to type in FFF. But that didn't mean when you typed in WTF and his show shows up and it's served up in the search directory, ours would show up as other shows or show up after that. So we were kind of doing a play on that. And some people who might be a little bit techie, and Mark Marone was in the tech industry. So like he kind of came out of that. He usually covered a lot of tech people on his show. So there was kind of a tie-in, if you want to think of it like that. But what might happen is they might see our show and go, what's that? That would be cool. So it's not going to steal his ability for someone who was really looking for a show, but it might allow them to come in and then go forward from there and check out ours as well. So we did it as a strategy, as a tie-in strategy. But again, we were also making sure we weren't coming in on top of it. So there also has been some others out there that have done things like, so Better Call Daddy is a great show. And Better Call Daddy was also based on a show, it was a play on a show called Call Me Daddy, which had gotten a lot of publicity and had really great listeners. And so Better Call Daddy and Call Me Daddy, they have some of the similar words in them, but they're not exactly the same. But if someone comes in and types in Better Call Daddy podcast, we're coming in on top of that person. We're really trying to play on and steal that person's authority. And that can happen in the podcasting ecosystem. And the question really becomes, did that person do something unethical? Maybe they did something that was a digital marketing hack. Absolutely. But it is not against any rules or guidelines. They didn't violate any copyrights. They didn't violate any of the rules of how podcasting works. And they can do that. They can do that in the system. Does it harm you? Yes and no. Yes, it is them, as I put it, trolling on your authority, trolling on all the hard work you've done to build up your show name, to get people to type it into the search engine and come and find you. But what doesn't happen here is that it's not going to take away your audience. They're going to recognize your cover art. They were looking for your show. They're going to come to that. But might they consider that other show also? Yeah, that could happen. But the reality is that it's not your show. And your show might have hundreds of episodes. Wouldn't that be great, right? So you have a lot of episodes based on your show, and that show's brand new. So a really serious podcast listener isn't going to come in and go check out a show that looks like a play on your name when it only has 3 episodes, when it's just starting out. So they haven't actually built their authority up, and the podcast listener is smarter than that. So that's what I want you to really understand and know. Yes, you're going to show up in search. They're going to show up in search. And if you haven't done your proper job of listing optimization and making sure that your show shows up properly and you've done everything right in how you do it, then you will not have the first place. So that's one of the things you want to confirm. If you are concerned about that, if when you type in your show name, it is not showing up first in the list, somebody else is, it's time for an review of your show. So we do podcast power appraisals all the time. It's a great time for us to review what's going on with your title. Come to podetize.com, check us out, go and type that in. You can go to our website and find anywhere at which you can get an appraisal. You can make any phone call with our team and they will be happy to review that for you if you're having an issue here. You should always show up though for your show name. It shouldn't be a problem. The podcasting ecosystem doesn't have a really rich search engine. So it's author name, show name, description, copyright line, right? So very few things work in terms of searchability. And when we have that show name, it should be right. But you may have done some things wrong, which that shrewd digital marketer may have recognized, like you may have named your show Better Call Daddy Show. And that means that if they come in with Better Call Daddy, they've circumvented you and gotten in front of you. Because here's the thing, the shorter it is, the better. So if it's Better Call anything else and all they type into the search engine is Better Call, their show will show up before yours. Better Call Dad, Better Call Father. Those are different ways to get around it and come in front of you, because Better Call Dad is shorter than Better Call Daddy, right? So they may circumvent you by doing that. That doesn't mean that there isn't some things that you can do to make sure that your authority in that search directory isn't staying front of mind. So it's not going to affect your success, though, and your audience reach. It's not taking away your subscribers. It is not doing anything to affect that unless a subscriber decides to choose them over you. Now, if they've created duplicate cover art as yours, that's something you really need to do something about, because that's your image. You've essentially copyrighted it. Hopefully you have, by putting a copyright line on your show. You've also done that by hopefully putting it on your website, and you have a copyright, hopefully at the bottom of your website as well. You know, these are things you need to make a general practice and confirm. But by doing so, that cover art image is covered under copyright. Now, it's not a documented filed copyright with the copyright and trademark system, but that's okay. You can do that after the fact. Publishing it and putting your copyright line there is enough to protect you. And so you may want to ask for a petition into Apple and ask them to stop this show from using your cover art. You certainly could send a cease and desist letter and make them change it. So if you have a confusing because they're using an image that is almost duplicate with yours, with just that slightly different name, that is a violation. And you definitely want to shut that down, because they're creating show confusion. Definitely make sure you ask for that to be taken down and for them to stop doing that. But you can't shut down a show that is using a similar name. It just won't work. There's no process in the system, unfortunately. It just isn't there. But your success and your audience reach, your subscribers aren't going to go to another show. They're already subscribed to you. They're not searching. So they're not going to go somewhere else. You're not going to lose them. It is someone new searching and coming in. It's the number one reason why you need to make sure that your show is showing up at all times. Like, you should always double check the directory. I type the binge factor in all the time. I type feed your brand and I check it to make sure periodically. I do it like maybe once a quarter, check to see what new shows are coming on. We did have this happen to us. Feed your brand had been in play for a while, and another podcasting company decided to come in with the word feed in their show name. It wasn't what their show name was originally. They switched their show and decided to draft off of our brand. I could have gotten upset about it, but I didn't, because what I know is that we had already had 100 episodes in on our feed. So we already had more episodes than they did. There's always going to be greater authority with more power. So keep doing what you're doing. Do it week after week. Continually, consistently, and constantly post episodes. That is going to win you more listeners. It is not going to change. Your existing subscribers are going to stay, and smart podcast listeners, which are the ones you want, are going to choose a show that has more power and longevity than they are going to choose an upstart that is drafting off your name. So in the end, I really don't think that having a duplicate podcast show name is going to change anything from where you are and what you've already built and done. However, there might be a benefit, because someone else has to market that name, that new name. They're doing a marketing job. And so when someone else types in Better Call Dad and you've got Better Call Daddy, and they type that in and they see your show and their show side by side, where they see Better Call Dad and Better Call Daddy side by side in the search engine when they pop that in, and they see your show has over 100 episodes, you might be drafting off them. You might be making them do more of the marketing work, and you're actually getting the benefit because you've already put in your dues in the podcasting ecosystem. So shutting them down actually isn't to your benefit. They're more likely to quit. A digital marketer is more likely to quit and pod fade faster than you will because you've already been doing this a while. So serious podcasters know that all they have to do is stay committed to their subscribers, committed to their audience, and keep moving forward on what they're doing. Let all those other people drive more traffic to you. It's more likely that when they drive more traffic to you, they're going to realize they made a huge mistake and they're going to quit their show, and it's never going to affect you moving forward. So I know it's frustrating. I know you want to get mad. You want to yell at your phone. You want to yell at Apple. I'm sure you might call up your hosting company and yell at them, but they have nothing to do with it, right? We at Podetize can't do anything about the fact that someone came in with the same name as you because Apple controls that. They allow the syndication of that. I wish it was different, but here's what I want to say to you. Don't get frustrated. Don't get mad. Just do what you do best. Nurture your audience, create a great show, and come to us and let us appraise your show. Let us take a look at that. Podetize.com/appraisal. You'll be able to easily check out, and we'll be able to help you figure out if you're doing something technically wrong that is the reason why someone can troll on you and actually show up first. And we'll do everything we can to help mitigate any problems that are happening from this and make sure you're still showing up and winning in the podcasting space. So thanks everyone for listening to this episode at Feed Your Brand. I'm sure Tom will feel all better next week, which is why he's missing this week. And he'll be back next time with me to cover a great podcasting tip, topic, or area. And if you have any suggestions, we want you to reach out to us. Go to podetize.com, submit a question to us. Go anywhere on social media, submit a question. Comment on this live stream, submit a question, and we will cover it in a future coaching call. Thanks everyone for being here. I'm Tracy Hazzard on Feed Your Brand. For those of you on the live stream and those of you clients, stay tuned because we're going to answer your questions live. Thanks everyone. Hey everybody. So glad to see you all here in our chat. I've got, Rosie, yes, you used No Woman Left Behind and it was twice abandoned. Absolutely good point that an abandoned show is a great way to troll into somebody, right? And you're not harming them because they quit. What's wrong with them? They quit. So that's absolutely a great way to do it. And you've built up your authority in it, covered this topic, and kept going. An abandoned show, it's free game. There's no reason you should feel bad about taking over a pod faded show, taking over the title of it. People do it for a reason. Somebody once typed that in, but you do want to make sure it is something worth checking out and using the same name as, because if they are unethical, if they are not a good company, if they harmed the brand of that name, you definitely want to listen and check it out. I'm getting a question. Hey, Scott Conway, how are you? I hope you're feeling well and doing well. What's the best way to nurture the audience? The best way to nurture the audience is to show up and serve them. When you show up consistently and constantly, week after week, and deliver good content to them, that's what matters most. When it's something that they deeply need, they're being served. They are going to stick around. They are going to subscribe to your show and they are going to stay. But sometimes we're, caught up in our guest model because our guest is to us, they're our first line, right? They're the people we're meeting with. We want to serve them most. When we are doing guest interviews as a part of our strategy, the only thing we want to be thinking about is the audience in the back of our mind. We want to be thinking about, what does the audience want to know? Now, we may not know our audience, especially when we're starting our show fresh, but that doesn't mean we don't have an ideal audience in mind and we think about what they want to know. Our job as the host of the show is to provide the audience with great value. And so that is whether that's our topics we're choosing, the questions we're asking. If we just keep them front of mind and remember they're there, we're going to do our job well. We're the curator, we're the hostess, the host. We're the ones providing them access to these guests and to the content. So it's our job just to remember that they're there and that they are our most important asset in our podcast. If we don't have listeners, why are we doing it? And that doesn't mean we need to have a million listeners, but every single listener matters out there. And thinking about what they want most matters. So we were just doing this. Nazanin is one of our team members on this call, and she and I were just meeting to review our topics. And we're planning our topics out for June right now. We just finished planning out June, and we missed one in May. So we slotted that in. And one of the things that I like to do this in a collaborative way is to make sure that it's not my topic. Nazanin is new to podcasting, new to our team, new to the space. So when I say, what about this topic? If it's not right or not understandable to her, then I am not doing my job making sure that my audience who's starting in the podcasting space understands it. I might override that and say, you know what? I also have to serve those who've done 100 episodes or more, and this topic is going to resonate with them. But at least she raised that point to me to make sure that I'm really thinking about that novice audience who might just be finding me and might not know anything about this. You want to bounce your ideas off of other people. So ask your audience if you need to. Ask a key member of your team. Ask someone, is this the right content? Is this the right cast? How did I do? That's always great. How did I do? How was that? Did it resonate with you? Was it working? Should I do more of that? Obviously, checking your listening, how your plays per episode is a way to check that. Because if you have episodes that didn't get as much plays as you normally do, like your norm that you have, your median, always you'll have a bounce up because someone did a really good job of promoting a guest or a topic really resonated with people. But if you're dipping below your normal plays, that says that your subscribers didn't like that topic, didn't like that guest. And maybe you need to find out why. So go ahead and ask those questions. But the best way to nurture an audience is to show up consistently and constantly and be thinking about them as you're creating that content. No questions on social. Okay. Let me know if anything pops up. Let's see who's here today. I didn't look at all my participants to see. Oh, Rosie and Charlotte and Ruth. Hi, how are you, all of you? Do you all have any questions? Is there anything I can do to help you support your show? Is there anything going on that you're here today for? You really want to say, I'm challenged in this on my show right now. I'll let all of you type in and see if there's anything. And while I do that, I want to remind everyone that we are going to be changing the Zoom link. So if you are on Zoom with us, we are going to be changing the Zoom link. Be looking for an email about this. So all clients, we are changing the Zoom link for this. The live stream is still going to stay in the same place. So if you're watching us on live stream, don't worry, nothing's going to change for you. But we are going to update the Zoom link. It's sort of an unfortunate thing that we had to switch our webinar system within Zoom, and they're going to force a change. So come May, we're going to have a new Zoom link. If you have any problems or you can't find it and you're like, I don't see it, reach out to the help team, reach out to our team. They'll be happy to and paying attention on the day of the call to make sure that happens in May. How can you check that your SEO is working? So Rosie, the simplest way to check on your show is to go into any app and go into a few of them. My favorite one is to check Google Podcasts because Google Podcasts has the richest SEO. And I want to see how I'm showing up because it does a better job of indexing all the shows. So there's more competition there than there is if I look in Spotify or I look in Apple. So one of the things that I do is I go straight into my app and I just type Explore, and that's what it says in the podcast app. And I type my show name and I check out and see what happens. I type my show topic area. So if it's women entrepreneurship, I might type that in. If it's help for podcasters or podcasting tips, I type that into the search engine. So I'm typing in my key area that I cover, my niche. And then I type in my name. And I check those three things and I see what shows up. And it'll show popular and trending. It'll show shows and it'll show episodes. And I want to make sure I'm showing up in all those places and where I'm ranking within there. And if I'm not ranking well, I make a note of who is beating me. Like who's showing up first. I want to know that because I want to go and check out their show name, their author name, their description, their episodes and see why they might be beating me. See what I'm not doing right in that process. Maybe they're using some keywords that I'm not. Maybe their show name is better than mine. Maybe I've confused things because I put my show name with my name as my title of my podcast and not leaving it up to the author name field. So there could be some technical things that you've done. If you come through our system and you're our client, and Ruth is, so Rosie is, so we're already on that side of things. We're checking these things for you. We will periodically review it, audit it, and check for you to make sure you haven't made any of these critical errors. But if you need help, you can always reach out to the help team and ask them to review it for you. So that's something that you could do. So then once I do Google Podcasts, I go check Apple, because Apple controls like most of the podcast apps out there. So I check Google Podcasts, I check Apple, and then I check Spotify. And I just make sure everything looks good. I only do it about once a quarter for myself. I don't do it more than that because stuff changes. Somebody else's episode was just really good this week and they beat me. I don't want to take it as gospel that like this happened at this point in time. I just check it out and generally look at it about once a quarter, and definitely once a year. I do a deeper dive into the competitive ones. I don't do it more than that unless I was like, wow, that one was brand new and I've never heard of it before and it beat me out. What are the new guys doing? I want to check out what they're doing. So I do that periodically, but it's not something that I'm really overly concerned about. I just want to check it periodically. Okay, I have another question. Malik is asking, I wanted to ask if it's a better strategy to release one episode every day, or if I should release multiple episodes on the same day. Is there a difference? So here's what I'm going to say. Releasing multiple episodes is a great strategy to continue to boost yourself in the niche market that you're in, because most people are barely doing one a week. So doing one a week is going to put you in the elite 10% of podcasts. Doing multiples per week puts you in the elite 5%-ish. And then getting a lot of library under your belt, right? Having more than 100 episodes, more than 25. So like over time, that's what doing multiple episodes is doing. It's building up your feed so that you have more shows, which is always valuable. So the faster you do that, the better off it is. When Tom and I started our first show, we did 20 episodes a month. We did 5 episodes a week. We built up our library really quickly. It is a strategy, and it helped us beat and be first in the 3D print space. We were the first, but we probably would have beaten them anyway because our show was much longer than their show. And because we had more deep content, we had a better show at the end of the day, and it was more valuable. So it probably wouldn't have mattered. We did that as a strategy and it worked quickly. But at the end of the day, we probably would have won out no matter what, just by creating great content. And that's what you can do. So do not be concerned if you do not have the time, the bandwidth to be able to do more episodes per week. But if you do, it is a great strategy, either short-term or long-term. But Malik, what I don't want you to do is release them on the same day. That is only a strategy if you're syndicating with episodes already added to your library, which some people do. Like they might create 25 episodes and then start their show and syndicate, and it already has 25 episodes, and then they go one per week after that. That's a different strategy, and you do maybe do multiples on the same day because of your syndication strategy. But don't do multiple episodes on the same day. It's too much for your listener to consume. Remember, we always want to be listener focused, and having one come out on Tuesday and one come out on Friday gives me enough space in between to listen to the show and look forward to the next one. If you're doing, though, a 2-parter or something like that, that's okay to do on the same day or a day apart, because they might want to go from one to the other immediately. But if they're not the same episode, they're not the same guest, they're not a 2-parter, giving your listeners time to listen to it, take a breath, absorb it, and get the next one pushed to them pretty immediately after that, within a couple of days, is a great strategy. Your great strategy to let them know you're here to serve them. You're here to provide them great value. You're here to provide them content. It's a great idea. but not on the same day. Rarely do that. Let's see. Website or podcast SEO needs clarification. Tom's on Facebook. Obviously, he's not resting as well as he should. There is a difference between search engine optimization on podcast directories, within podcast directories, and within Google and the website ecosystems. There is a difference in search engine optimization. Everything in the web world goes under Google rules, which is indexing based on keywords, based on domain authority, based on a whole bunch of factors in there, original voice, those things matter. But it's much richer. It's got so many different factors that's why we have all these search engine optimization specialists who send you an email every week telling them they're going to optimize your website, right? It's really complex out there. Podcasting is simple. Their search algorithm only works on name, show name, your name, author name, description. Like basically that's it. Copyright does it. Episode titles happen as well. But first, foremost, when someone's looking for a show, it's show name or title, author name, and description. That's it. And that's why we encourage everyone here to use the 4,000 character description, because it is one of the only places you can get those terms, you can get those keywords, you can get your marketing niche, you can get your area of expertise in. A little bit of difference. In the podcast analytics section, in the Podetize analytics section, what is directories? Directories is Apple, Spotify. It's your link to those directories or your particular show. So when you syndicate a show, when we syndicate a show at Podetize and we send it out from our hosting platform out to Apple to be syndicated, they create a show number that they attach to it. And so it's this weird lengthy link. It's like Apple Podcast, and then it's got these numbers and weird things to it. We drop that link into your Podetize portal and it's there, and we label it under directories. So it's all the directories you're listed under and the unique link that you would use for each directory. That's the fastest way for you to go and check how your directory listing looks. You want to drop that in, but I want to encourage you never to share those links. Do not share the directory direct link out anywhere on social media. You're using it only to link to Apple and check it out for yourself. You're using it when you have a sharing link or in your podcast player on your website. You might link out to it so someone could immediately subscribe to you on Apple. But if you share it out as your only link, you're giving Apple all your traffic. They already do it. People know to go into Apple and then find your show. Like they don't use a link to get there except on their computer. Like it doesn't work as easily in the other places. It can work from our link page, from the link through page, and it goes and it opens up the app and then they can find your show and immediately select it and subscribe to it. But that's the subscribed links, right? And that's where those directory links are going into. But do not share these links. This is what I want to encourage you to do. They're just showing you where they are. Anybody else have any questions? We might end up with a short coaching call today, which is perfectly okay. I'll give everybody a break. My voice is obviously going. I am not sick. I already had COVID in January, so I'm doing well. But my voice is a little strained from recording so many episodes because I've been doing a lot of episodes. I've been doing a lot of coaching calls, and I've been doing a lot of it. Oh, Scott is asking, which directory link do not share? So when you're in the Podetize portal, and I am going to open this up and share my screen for you. Hold on a second, because it will take me a moment to pop this in, because I don't want to go into an admin area. I want to go in and show you what it looks like from a novice area. And I'm pretty sure I have my own login, doesn't let me use it as an admin. So here we go. So let me share my screen for you. So here I am. If you've logged into the Podetize client portal, you have all your shows here. These are my shows. This is some of my shows, but I'm going to click on the binge factor. I'll show you. Here's all the details. You see all the details on here. Here's the feed. That's my actual feed number. That's what's syndicated out, or my feed URL. That's what's syndicated out to all the podcast directories and players. So if I go under distribution, it's going to give me all of these links. Here's my link to Apple Podcasts. If I click this, it's going to take me straight to Apple Podcasts and to my show on Apple Podcasts. Of course, it's really slow, but you can see that I don't want to open the podcast app, but here we go. So Apple Podcast Preview, this is what my show looks like. If I want to, when I first syndicate a show, I always want to check and say, how do I look on here? Do I look pretty good? I have 170 episodes, everything's showing up. That's really weird that one's coming up before that one. A little odd. I'll have to check on that. So why is it February 23rd email podcast coming up before March 28th? That's a little weird. And it should be April. So it's a little strange that those are out of order. So we'll have to check on that. So it gives me an opportunity to check on those things. Now I'm going to go back here so you can check on it. You have all of the different Spotify's here, iHeart, YouTube. You can see they're all here, and it's going to click out and it's going to show me exactly where I want to go. Now, it also is that I can go to analytics and see my podcasts, and you can go down to all of your links down here. You can see your shows. You have all of these things as well. You have your analytics portal here as well. So I'm just sharing that with you. Episodes, you can go check these episodes. So I can go check that episode and see what's going on with it. Yeah, it's not showing up in this order. How weird. There must have been something that happened that hasn't flowed through. Maybe a mistake happened and the dating was being adjusted, and it didn't flow through the Apple system. So I can fix that. Let's see. In the analytics session, measuring what is directories. Oh, so you're asking here. So I'm going to go here. Hold on 1 second. Let's go down to, so what you're going to see is you're going to see all of these different places that do this. And you see this 36.1% directories. Those are all the podcast directories that are pulling my feed. So as I told you, there are way more than Apple. This is the Apple podcast. It's 41.6% of it. Google is 11.3. Overcast is 2.1. iHeart is 1.7. Pocket Cast. These directories, the reason we don't show you over here is that these are all those little small directories. That's Blueberry's directory. That was all those little tiny directories. It might be, I'm trying to think of some of the other ones that I have on my phone. Good Pods is in there. So there's a ton of directories that I'm going to say tap into the Apple Podcast API to get your feed. And we lump them all together here. And why they're so large is because every single day they tap that. They are always coming in and pulling all your episodes every single day. So that's why they look that large. So that's the directories. Those are the same directories I showed you how to get to the link to. Those are the same thing there. So it is not a single player. It is many players, and grouping together, they're 36%, but each one of them is less than 1%. They're the obscure websites that make your show available on their site, right? You get plays from them, but there's not a distribution link, meaning you can't create a special link to them because they don't work like that. They're using the Apple API to pull all your podcasts in there. So there's no direct link that they create. They're not storing your show. They're just allowing plays of your feed. So plays are happening over there. 36% of my plays were happening on one of those directories or on many of those directories. But each directory might have gotten 5 plays, 1 play, very small amounts. And most of them don't identify themselves as a unique app. So that's how that's working. It's a little bit odd. We track it separately like that because we want to pool them together so you can really see what's happening. But the reality is there's like, if you were to do it on any other hosting platform, they keep them all individual and they're like fractions of a percentage. So hope that helps everyone. Any other questions? If not, I'm going to give you a preview while we're waiting to see if anybody else types in. Our topic for next week is when to copyright or trademark your podcast show name or brand. And that is a tie-in to this week's, right? Obviously, as we were talking about this idea of having a duplicate show name is, should you podcast your show name? Should you podcast your brand, copyright your show name, copyright your brand? Should you trademark it or should you copyright it? What's the difference? And when should you think about doing that? That's what we're going to talk about next time, because reality is like, yes, any trademark and copyright attorney will say, oh yeah, do it. But it's just fees and filing and other things. And it might not be the right time. So we're going to talk about when the right time is to do this. And remember, Tom and I have 40 patents and we have, I don't even know how many trademarks and copyrights. I have 3,000 pieces of content that are all copyrighted. So there's a lot in this experience that we have, that we know when we should pay for something and do a proper filing and when we shouldn't. That's what we're going to talk to you about next week. Hopefully Tom will be back because that's a great topic for him. Coming up in the next month, we've got a bunch of other topics as well. Some of them are going to be more social media focused. So we are really excited about some of the topics that we have planned for you in the next 2 months. And we're really kind of filling out like the missing pieces in some of the areas. So we are going back to some topics that are getting updated, and we are going forward with some topics that you might not have even considered yet. And then shortly, I'm going to be talking to a YouTube expert that I'm expecting to bring in July or August this summer, bringing in a YouTube expert to talk about YouTube optimization. So want to make sure you're aware of that. If you are our client, you received an email in the last week talking about YouTube podcasts and updating and how you update your podcast in YouTube so that you show up in the podcast area of YouTube right now. If you are a do-it-yourselfer on a system, make sure you watch the videos because you have to do this yourself. If you're a Podetize production client, a done-for-you client, where we are managing your YouTube for you, we will already have fixed it for you probably by the time you even get around to reading your email. But you might want to know and check out the video so that you know why it's happening and what's going on there, so you can watch in case you're starting to get more YouTube traffic and you're starting to get more YouTube subscribers. That switching your playlist to podcasts on YouTube might just be the key to why that happened. So let's see. I don't see any other questions. So I'm going to end us early for today. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for joining into the live stream. If you're new to us, welcome. Come check us out. Go to podetize.com, check us out and see what's going on there. Be sure to subscribe to the Feed Your Brand podcast and subscribe to the Binge Factor podcast, which is my podcast where I interview successful podcasters and find out what they do to get more listeners, to get great guests, to monetize their show. And maybe one of those tips is exactly what you've been looking for in your podcast journey. Well, thanks everyone. I'll be back next week, hopefully with Tom. Appreciate you. Until next time, keep podcasting.